welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria and I wanted to create this quick intro to this video because the video started off with one plan and then we kind of moved to another, which I had originally planned on actually watching Hallmark's Paging Mr. Darcy, but realized quickly that I was unable to watch it because it seems that although you can watch Hallmark movies on Peacock, it seems like it needs to be done when it's live, at least for the new ones, because there are some available for streaming, but that one in particular didn't seem to be. So I'm gonna try to catch that one another time, which I'll talk about in the video as well. But instead, I ended up watching An American in Austen because you can actually stream that right now through the Hallmark movie app, which I grabbed a 7-day trial of to see if I could find Paging Mr. Darcy, and stumbled upon it and just had an absolutely fantastic time. So I'm excited to share this video with you where I watch it. With that, let's go ahead and kick it back to the Victoria of the past and watch An American in Austen. Hi. So a fun fact, I had said that you can watch Paging Mr. Darcy on Peacock, and that is true because you can watch it live, but you can't watch it streaming. Now I know it's going on tonight, but I have dance. Hello, Pumpkin. Oh, she's coming to say hi. Hi, Bumps. You wanna say hi? It's too dark. I don't even think they can see you right now. There she is. There's the Pumpus. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. Did you pump it up? Anywho, so yeah, I can't watch Paging Mr. Darcy today. So instead, we're gonna watch An American in Austen, because that you can stream. And I did the Hallmark movies now. I did like the free subscription for a week to see if I could find Paging Mr. Darcy on there. Lo and behold, you can't. So I am going to check my listings. I think they will play Paging Mr. Darcy next week, and so I will try to catch it live sometime next week. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and watch An American in Austen.
This is excellent pea soup.
Why is it lime green?
I must inform you, Mr. Collins, the eldest Bennet daughter.
Hello. It is Friday, February 9th, and we have concluded our watch of An American in Austen. I loved it. I had a great time. I was not expecting to have so much fun with this movie, and me saying that is only because I am not a Hallmark watcher typically. It's just not my vibe. I'm not a big romance novel reader either, so like that's just not what I typically look for. But I thought this was a quaint little movie. It's only an hour and 24 minutes, which, you know, we are appreciating a movie who respects our time. We don't really see anything but kids movies being that short anymore, so it was nice for it to be a quick little romp here. But the basis of the movie, to me, is a little bit of a combination of an old TV show, which we will talk about at one point in time in this Jane Austen February series, but it reminded me a bit of Lost in Austen and a little bit of Austen Land. And I know some people who have seen it might be being like, I don't see the Austen Land, but it's not so much in the necessarily plot of the movie, but more in the moral of the story for the main character is where I saw the most similarities of just like, we have a modern day person who is absolutely in love with the idea of Mr. Darcy and has been waiting for their Mr. Darcy most of their life. And in a way it kind of skews their view on love and makes it difficult for them to separate the idea of a fictional romance with that of a real life person who they're having a romantic relationship with. And that's where I seen the most similarity between Austen Land and American in Austen. I'm gonna do my best not to spoil the movie, but give you a general idea of what the movie is, and if you're interested in it, you know, help you decide whether or not this is a Jane Austen inspired movie you want to check out. So our movie centers on Harriet. She is a librarian somewhere in her 30s. We don't get an exact age for her, and that will become important a little later. But we don't get an exact age for her, and we open up with Harriet in the library and obviously a pumpkin. So we open up with Harriet. She's sitting in the library, and a regular, I guess, visitor, purveyor of the library, a teenage girl comes, returns Love and Cholera, I believe the book is, which is a pretty sad, depressing novel, and they're having like a little bit of witty banter about it. And then she suggests Pride and Prejudice, and the girl's like, she's like, you know, everything's great about it but Mr. Darcy. And then the teenage girl's like, who's Mr. Darcy? And she's like, ooh, Mr. Darcy. I don't know. It's just like our opener of introducing that the character of Harriet really loves Pride and Prejudice. It's her favorite Jane Austen novel. We also get a little bit more a little more of a sneak peek into Harriet's backstory, in that it seems like her parents were divorced when she was young, and so she kind of used books to help her as a child deal with that change in her life. At that point, we do meet her boyfriend, Ethan, and apparently Ethan and Harriet have been together for about 3 years, and he is trying to help her get off work with her boss so they can go and celebrate their 3rd year anniversary. And, you know, in typical like romance Hallmark fashion, I was like, oh, here we go. We're getting a proposal. So Harriet, in their dinner, realizes that she had left her phone. They're having like some cute chit chats about their relationship and everything seems great. She's like, oh no, I forgot my phone. And he's like, oh, where? And she's like, the library. And he's like, the library? Well, I guess we'll have to go. And so they go back to the library, and lo and behold, he's got this entire proposal, really cutesy, cringy kind of proposal going on. I mean, it was cute, but clearly she's like, oh, this is cute, but oh boy. So he goes to do the proposal, her friends and family are there. Well, her friends are there, and we cut to black. Then Harriet is sitting with her boss and another friend, drinking straight out of a champagne bottle, and we find out that she answered maybe. And her friends are like, maybe? And she's like, I don't know, maybe. And so she's really struggling with this whole thing, and brings up the point I was making before, that she'd always just pictured the man that she married was going to be some handsome stranger on the sidewalk who comes and sweeps her off her feet. And really, she just wants her Mr. Darcy, is essentially what we get to here. And so as her friends are putting her into a cab, she sees a shooting star and makes a wish, and the friend's like, oh, wish for a do-over, and instead she wishes to meet her Mr. Darcy. So she gets into the cab and falls asleep, and upon waking up ends up in a carriage. She looks out, and we see clearly as the audience that she is in a Regency period. We are in Regency England, and she is trotting along. She's a little discombobulated, but eventually we come to a very familiar scene. We're at Longbourn, which, if you're not familiar with Pride and Prejudice, is the house of the Bennets. And here Harriet is introduced to all of the Bennet clan, and at first Harriet thinks that this is some elaborate prank put on by Ethan as a like nudge nudge, oh, you want a Mr. Darcy kind of situation. And so that's kind of how we proceed in the first part of this story, and her being a modern day woman put into a fictional version of Regency England. So the Bennets believe Harriet to be their cousin from America. They make some jokes about her clothes because she comes out in like a white dress that does have some Regency era style to it, but they're like, oh, do Americans wear their pajamas out in public kind of situation. And then also her friends forgot her shoes, so she is looking a hot mess. And they attribute this to a 10-week travel from America to England. So, you know, Harriet becomes engrossed in this family. She's told that she's going to be going to Meryton, where we have our first dance and introduction of Mr. Bingley and Mr. Darcy in the book. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but what I think this movie did really great was balance the idea of Harriet being in the story and what she's learning from it and how she's interacting with these characters, along with the story of Pride and Prejudice. So if you've seen Lost in Austen, it's a very similar idea. However, what's interesting about this movie is, you know, Lizzie's still there. So all the characters are still in play, and obviously Harriet being thrown into the mix is going to make some changes into how the situation happens. And some of the things that I thought were really fun that they did with this movie that I really enjoyed as someone who's seen many Pride and Prejudice adaptations and then now has read the book was what they did with the Bennet family as a whole. I feel like the Bennets, obviously, except for Jane and Lizzie, are described to be rather silly. And I think in this movie they did a really good job. Like, props to all of the actors in this movie, because I had a great time. Like, they were bringing the comic relief. They were wearing their emotions on their face. Like, there was so much like physical humor going on that I thought was really great, and kind of giving nods to Jane Austen fans of how like we react to different parts. Like, one part in particular I can think of was when Mr. Collins gets introduced and they're kind of pointing out the different sisters, and Jane, and Jane's literally like drinking her wine and kind of like spits in her cup, and it's just like physical comedy like that I found was really fun. I also really thought it was interesting how they portrayed Mr. Darcy interacting with our character Harriet. He was so silly. It was funny though, like everything about it was funny. Like I laughed out loud multiple times watching this movie. I thought they just really played into some of the silliness of the whole situation, but still hit the beats of Pride and Prejudice and kept like the core of their characters. Although Kitty for some reason became the butt of so many jokes. And I think this was kind of similar to how if you saw the Dungeons and Dragons movie Honor Among Thieves, like they were playing to Jane Austen fans in this movie. Like a lot of the jokes were very much embedded in the culture of people who have interacted with Jane Austen content, who love Pride and Prejudice, and like all of the discourse around the story. I feel like they really tried to make nods to that with the characters consistently in the movie, and I really appreciated it. The couple things that I didn't find so funny, and I attribute this to the fact that I have watched a couple of people who focus on doing like video essays on historical dress and the way of like the living of historical people, would be some of the jokes that they made that I felt like were a little lazy in my opinion, just because they continue to perpetuate a couple ideas that it seems like many historians continue to say we see in film and TV when we have these situations where a modern day character is dropped into a historical setting. So first one is the corset. You know, women wore corsets for a very, very long time, and from my understanding of just women who wear corsets frequently for, you know, their jobs and things like that, that a properly fitted corset is not uncomfortable. Not in the way that they make it out to seem. Like, I've worn a corset that I purchased from the Renaissance Festival, and I was never feeling faint. I was not feeling like I couldn't move. Like, I mean, we could do something else. Like, they had plenty of good jokes just about the story. I didn't particularly like that. And again, that might just be because I've listened to so many historians now complain about those kind of jokes, and maybe I'm just more like cognitively aware of it as I'm watching this movie. Another one was they made a joke about bathing and her wanting a hot shower, which, listen, hot showers, privilege, absolutely. Like, she was talking about, you know, oh, that explains the smell. Again, like, I just feel like we could have done a little bit more research on this, especially because clearly the people who wrote this are big Jane Austen fans. You know, there's a lot of research that's easily accessible out there to people who aren't producing film and television that could give you more insight into what that would have been like. Now again, of course, this is an hour and 20 something odd movie, minute movie. Like, we don't have to get too deep into it, but again, I just think because I've been listening to people talk about it, it was just very apparent to me where I was like, why? Why? Like, I felt like they were just looking for an easy joke, and honestly, I feel like the movie stood enough on its own that we didn't need that. But I'm gonna try to not continue on that tangent. There were a couple of them, but those were the two that I remembered. I was just like, man, they do that a lot, don't they? And if I do a rewatch, if I do a rewatch of Lost in Austen, I am sure I will find more of those things that will kind of irritate me, probably more than it did when I originally watched it. So obviously what you consume colors how you view material, and that was just some basic thoughts that I had. Outside of that, like I said, Mr. Darcy was super silly, and it was kind of fun. I love the take. Again, a lot of physical humor going on in this film. It was so interesting. And also, I think that the character of Harriet and her reactions, her eye rolls at some of the character moments, her like, oh my lord, let's get through this kind of situation, when Lizzie and Darcy first meet, and that whole him being a jerk and her just going up to him and being like, I really don't like this first part of the book, and I always wish we could just get through it to get to the good bit. And I was like, that part, because that's how I felt when reading Pride and Prejudice. So again, I just felt like we were doing a lot of nods to the audience, to lovers of Jane Austen, to lovers of Pride and Prejudice. And I just thought that was really fun. I felt like it was just well done. I had a great time. Like, it was concise. You know, like I said, we cut out bits. Not every part of the story was gonna flow exactly how it flowed in the actual adaptations, but I thought that everyone delivered. I've got a lot of funny bits that I took pictures of the physical humor that I will surely have. I'll have editing Victoria intersperse in here without giving too much away. But bravo to the team over at Hallmark, because I had a really good time. Like, I had a lot of fun. It was a great movie. I think Harriet was a fun character. I thought she was relatable. I could see her being myself, dropped in the same situation. I did really like... Oh, that was the other thing. Oh, I know. Okay, so one other joke that actually I was like, okay, this is probably historically accurate. They made it, and I think this was both like a historical joke, but also like a Jane Austen readers, Regency romance readers joke, was about her being over the age of 30, and when they find out and making old jokes about her consistently throughout the movie. I thought that was really funny, because they do talk about women being old, getting married at like 27, you know, past their prime. Like, we've got main characters in Sense and Sensibility getting married or being talked about getting married around 16, 17. We've got characters being talked about going into town and being, you know, introduced to society at like age 15, 16. So the idea that her being over 30 and then making jokes about her sleeping all the time and, you know, just different things like that, walking and such, because she's old, was just really funny. Like, overall, I think it was commentary about the books, commentary about how we talk about being old in our 30s, speaking for myself, and how it's really not old, but how we feel like it is sometimes. I just thought that was really funny. So, kudos to the writers. I thought they did a really great spin on this. And I think if you are a Jane Austen fan, you enjoy a good little romp and are just looking for something to, you know, sit and watch and have a good time and revisit Pride and Prejudice in a little bit funnier of a way, in a really like, oh, sorry, I hit a bag, in just like a kind of lighthearted, fun way, and seeing the Bennets being a little bit more funny than they typically are, I really recommend An American in Austen. I don't know if any of the other Hallmark movies are gonna top this one, because I had such a fun time. But, I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know if there are any of them gonna top it. I'm excited to catch Paging Mr. Darcy when I can. But I think it was, you know, a happy accident that we ended up watching American in Austen, because it was just what I needed. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you to everybody who was part of that production, despite my little qualms with some of the historical things. You guys did a great job. I had so much fun. If you've watched An American in Austen, please feel free to leave me a note about your thoughts. If you need help figuring out how to watch it, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested to stick around and join me in some more Austen fun here in the month of February, or just looking to do some more bookish and nerdish content, feel free to subscribe. I upload every Sundays and sometimes on Wednesdays. And in the meantime, I hope you read a good book, I hope you find some joy, and most importantly, I hope you do something wonderful to make the world a better place. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye!